Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to this Creative Futures Academy event with Array Collective and ruangrupa. I'm Declan Long from the National College of Art and Design. This is a Creative Futures Academy event. As I say, this is a Creative Futures Academy is a collaboration between NCAD, National College of Art and Design, NCAD, the National College of Art and Design, University College Dublin, and the Institute of Art Design Technology, Dún Laoghaire. So today we're going to be focusing on the work of internationally acclaimed art collectives. We're meeting with members of ruangrupa, who are based in Jakarta in Indonesia, and we're going to be working with them using the collaborative project, educational project, Good School, as the focus. And we will be joined also by members of the Array Collective in Belfast. The Array Collective will be well known in Ireland and internationally to many, winners of the Turner Prize in 2021. And we're going to hear a lot about their activities today. Just to say to everyone that throughout the discussion today, you can put questions in the chat. But we'll also have a poll later on where we'll have a series of questions which you can choose from to let us know which you think are the most urgent or interesting. But you know, we'll keep an eye on the chat for questions that come from you all as well. The session's being recorded today, so you can let people know about that. It'll be up on the Creative Futures Academy website at some stage. And yes, if you can't stay for the whole thing, it'll be available to you there as well. So basic introductions aside, looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say today. We're going to just get a quick hello from everyone involved. We'll go first of all to Jakarta and meet Gesia and Farid, who are joining us there. We're at 7 p.m. Do you want to say hi?
Yes, you can start.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and also thank you for having us here. I'm Gesia from Jakarta, Indonesia. I'm part of Good School and ruangrupa, and I'm looking forward to the fun session we're going to have today. So thank you so much. Farid?
Yeah. Thank you very much for having us. I'm Farid, also from Jakarta, calling from Jakarta tonight. So it's Saturday night for us. Looking forward to spend this Saturday night with you all.
Thanks, Farid. And up to Belfast to meet the Array Collective.
Hey lads, it's Mitch here.
Alessia.
And Stephen.
And Emma calling in from a slightly different location.
And as far as I know, it's freezing in Belfast, so the some members of Array are huddled around a radiator there, and Emma may also be joined by her son at some point, her 5-year-old son, who's you know, milling around there somewhere. So what we're going to do this afternoon is we're going to have some quick fire questions based on cards that are developed as part of the Good School process. And then we're going to go into a slightly more extended knowledge exchange between Array and Gesia and Farid through Good School. And then we'll come back to our poll, which we'll show you at the end, and we'll get some responses from the chat too. And then we're going to have some closing music, which we'll tell you more about a little later on. So we'll start then, unless I've missed anything incredibly important that needs to be said at the beginning. And I should say that my colleagues Joanna and Shauna are in the background lending amazing support. And if I happen to mess anything up, Shauna and Joanna will step in. So we'll start though with our quickfire questions, if that's okay. And we're gonna go to Gesia and Farid first, and they can get us going, and these will be a couple of minutes of responses each, and we'll either, it's up to you guys, it's either we you do one and you fire it over to Array, or you can answer a few in a row, whatever you'd prefer. So we'll go to Geshe and Farhad first, and you can kick off.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Thank you for playing with us. Because we have several generations already in the collectives that form Good School. Ruangrupa is one of them. Serum and Grafis Ruhara are another. So each of us have different intergenerational process, let's say. And then talking in Good School, we just like jumble things up. I can say from early 2000 version of Ruangrupa at that moment, because Good School was founded in late 2018. It came about two things, maybe. One is political movement, because the dictatorship ended in 1998. Ruangrupa was founded in 2000. It's hard to say, to kind of like separate it, although it's not exactly because of the political climate at that moment, but the euphoria. We're part of the euphoria of finally being able to express ourselves, let's say. And I'll stop there for now. Maybe Geshe can continue.
Thank you, Farid. So I'm part of the younger generations. As for me, to work in a collective as my artistic strategy is because the reality that we cannot work alone in this art ecosystem. We always need each other to some degree, like to create exhibitions, to produce projects. We always need each other. So that's why being in a collective helps to expand many possibilities in mediums, in ideas, and also places beyond, let's say, gallery or beyond institutions. So that's why working in a collective offers that fluidity and crazy ideas for us. So that's for us. What about Array Collective?
I think, I suppose in Belfast there is loads of collective working going on. Seems quite a natural way to work in a place where I suppose the resources and the fundings are limited. But just talking about Array, I think we start working together, but wasn't really a strategy. We were coming together to attend marches and rallies a few years ago, so around like, I don't know, 2016, probably 17. So there wasn't a big strategy behind it, but just happened quite naturally because lots of us were in Array Studios, and also it's a central place, so it's handy to prepare and make banners here and then join the marches, which always takes place in the city center.
Yeah, I think as well, in a nice sort of interesting mirror of in Indonesia, a lot of the art groups and artist-led studios set up here around the time of the Good Friday Agreement. So that was 1998, and Array Studios has been going since around about that time, even though none of us are, I mean, maybe we're old enough, but we weren't up to it enough then. So yeah, I think that's, but maybe also at that time it was easier to survive on state welfare and be an artist, certainly, than it is now. So that's, I suppose, we have that legacy, but we don't necessarily have the same economic circumstances.
That's great. Good answers. Will we move to the next question? Okay, so here's the next of the Good School cards. Geshe and Farhad.
Guess you want to start, maybe looking back, not looking back, but right now, from now, and then I'll go the past bit.
Thank you for it. So right now, our current issue is about collective sustainability, not only in economical sense, but also in ideas. So it's more into the developing the organizations, building networks, maintaining networks, finding ways to make decisions collectively, because as you know, artists have different kind of perspective. If we say the same thing, maybe it will be different for others. So that's currently what we are. They become our main concerns, this maintaining, sustaining, and finding the right, let's say, part of the models, the right institutional models that can work for us, because yeah, again, to sustain these practices. So I think that's now, especially in the context of Good School.
Yeah, I think it's a good entry point because a lot of times we change. When Good School was founded, like from now, for example, it became sharper than compared to when Good School was founded. But Good School was founded after several attempts of trying to sustain our practice, that's one, but also realizing that there's a lot of parts in the ecosystem in order for us to survive. As Ray also touched upon, no, like we also came from a background where resources are scarce, especially state. So from ruangrupa, Serum and Grafis Ruahara had different model, but from ruangrupa we survived in the beginning by doing €0 projects, what we call €0 projects, but then also we survived by doing art projects, research projects, mainly from foreign funding. After like, I think after 10 years, around 2010, a bit after or before, we realized it's not sustainable either. So it's kind of like from early 2010s up until now, like early 2020s, there are several attempts that we tried to do, from ganging up, forming collective of collectives, up until renting space together. And right now with Good School, we have a space together, turning ourselves into an informal educational platform, etc., etc. It's kind of like a translation of this attempt of keep on asking, why should we should exist still? When we stop being able to answer that, I think it's okay for us. And then we've said it so many times as well, if we cannot answer it anymore, it's fine for us to disband and disappear.
Thanks.
And Ray, maybe
Yeah.
passing on.
So I suppose just to like quickly, Alessia was talking about the genesis of the collective, but it really was like, when you talk about what are the issues your collective is focusing on, for us, it really did start on like the issues that we were facing, and not just as artists, but as like citizens living in the city. So 2015, 2016, which we often reference, like really was a real heightened moment within Belfast, but also the North. So like you're really talking the full gamut of sort of pan-societal issues of marriage equality, abortion, reproductive rights, language rights, social housing, just conversion therapy marches going on. Healthcare was a big issue at the time, and it really felt like it feels like we repeat ourselves sometimes, but we were pretty much out every week. And when I say we, like Array is sometimes kind of shown in the art sector as highlighting these issues or whatever, but like there was much more than us. Like we were just one part of a wide spectrum of the art sector who were out pretty much, it felt like weekly at one stage, trying to highlight and protest against these issues and support the issues in the ways that we could. And so we were really tapped into like an ecology within the city of like other arts organizations, other groups, other collectives, even within our own building, Alliance for Choice, who are the lead advocacy body for reproductive rights in the North. They also like shared some of the facilities here. So it was a natural relationship in terms of like us being individuals, being friends, being a studio group, being a collective, and then also tapped into the wider sector of like the charitable community and the art and the arts, like protests, I suppose, movement that was going on at the time. And that I think that's kind of in the last sort of like 4 to 5 years. We may possibly are still doing similar things, but we've maybe moved on a little bit.
Yeah, and it's also very interesting to hear you talking, guys, because you're obviously been going on for years and years, and we never really talk about, like, you know, long-term work, and especially at the beginning, everything was just like, you know, just made for the day. So there wasn't really this idea of like future, really.
No.
Yeah, like the sense that everything was quite reactive, but the issues still exist.
Yeah.
And we're still focusing on them. And like you say, it is a different way. And maybe but we're still on the streets. Like I guess those senses haven't quite changed. It's not quite as weekly, maybe. We've slightly adapted our approach, but the causes are still just as urgent.
Yeah.
I also think, like, because we got the platform that we got, we also used it to highlight the situations for all the artist studios and groups working in the north, especially in terms of space or buildings to inhabit and public support for the arts in general. So those conversations suddenly started happening once we had a platform, and we weren't able to talk about them up until that point. So you know, just because there were a lot of issues that we were focused on before doesn't mean that we're not, you know, nimble enough to be ready for other issues as they come up. Or and you know, some people approach us then to see if we can help. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. So yeah, it becomes more tricky the more stretched and more in demand we get, I suppose.
Thanks, Emma. Okay, next question, Joanna and Shona.
Ray, you want to go first?
Yeah, this one is kind of like important because, thank you guys. Ruangrupa have, at least from Ruangrupa again, sorry, but I said before, space has always been our kind of like in the middle of our battle for rights, let's say, to be in the city itself still. The last attempt was Good School again, by securing, so we don't have to pay rent anymore. But we don't do it by ourselves because we would never be able to do it, but with other collectives. No, at this moment, of course, Seruman Grafis Ruhara, but also we're sharing it to others to use. And the name itself, Ruangrupa, means ruang is space in Sanskrit and Indonesian. Rupa means visual or form. I'm sorry if I'm repeating things that you've already known, but I think because of the question, it's important to underline. That's also why actually I was an architecture student into, like, I entered university in 2000. So I knew about Ruangrupa when I was still a student in architecture, and then because they're interested in talking about space in ways that I felt at that moment the school or the architecture world was not talking about it that much. So that attracted me to Ruangrupa. And then, yeah, what's the next thing? I think, like, relating to it, there are a lot of space challenges in Jakarta, of course, one of the most expensive places in the country. It's not expensive compared to other, like, you know, northern part of the world, but still in Indonesia, it's still contested. So maybe we should get into it with also the last Lumbung interlocal attempts with talking about land and all those kind of stuff. It's part of this, how the city, how policies, how environment actually shape our collective practice, basically. If we're not in Jakarta, it would be different, for example, as a shortcut. Yes, sorry to take too long.
It's okay. For me, or also maybe for us, it's like a one-stop living to have a collective space, because realistically, with the craziest traffic jam in Jakarta, you can only go to 3 places at most in a day. So by having a space, like say some of our members resides in Good School, they have the studio, and then we have our canteen, we have our own coffee shop, and then it extends until like we have a hair salon. One of our member really likes to make really good at to do haircuts. So it's like, okay, in a day, this is the things that we can cover. We can work, we can live, we can eat, and then do our necessities for daily life. So like the context that Farid explains about how it's really expensive to have a space in Jakarta, by sharing it and then have these services, have these functions that we can all share together, will really helpful to foster our career and our practices.
Thanks a million. Geshe, I think that there might be, when you're talking, there's the sound of someone else talking in the background as
Yeah,
well.
it's background noise. Yes.
Yeah, that's okay. We're just trying to work out who the culprit was, but that's okay. Array, tell us about space.
Oh God. I think it's important to contextualize, like we're sat surrounded, like I don't know if you can show, but like we're literally sat surrounded by 3 all these tiny little radiators. Like this place is freezing. I feel like there's almost like a guilt and shame that comes attached with inviting people here. Like this space is kind of hopeless. It's not really fit for purpose. It's on the 2nd floor of a building in the center of Belfast, but there's no access. So if you have mobility issues or you can't get up with a pram or something, this place is it's an absolute shagmare. But like we are one of the very few artist studios left in the city. Everyone else being forced out to the margins. Like, I mean, and one of the good things about having a central location is having that's kind of secure base that we can invite people and groups to kind of run workshops, to prepare before a protest. But they have some, like they can meet us and come with us, so they're not going alone. They can come back afterwards. There's that kind of security. So it's like, I feel very conflicted about it. Like you almost don't want to give that up, but it's also fallen down around us, and it's a wee bit shines a light on how artists are kind of treated in the city, I think.
Yeah, you can kind of, sorry, I'm if you're going to come in, but you can contradict that point nearly in some ways, because when we're in NCAD or being hosted by NCAD, and you look at the Dublin context, Belfast is, for artists, is like incredibly fortunate in that, like, there's so much free space within the city. There's so much like temporary free space. Rent is incredibly cheap. Housing and rent are incredibly cheap in terms of the island. And like, if you want to do things temporarily, like immediately, with like energy and life, whatever, Belfast is like such a good place for that, but it can never get beyond that. It can never get beyond that. And that's why you constantly like, when people come here or they already have preconceptions about Belfast or the art scene or whatever, it falls into these descriptions and categories of I don't want to say artist led, but like ad hoc and DIY, and which is all fantastic, but it never gets the support in terms when we talk about space for that to be like a lasting legacy or impact.
Yeah, because the space, as you guys say, determine also the things that the potential of what you can do. So yeah, it's always a limitation and a weapon at the same time.
Also, I think as well, like having to think about the space all the time or having to be in a precarious position means that you're thinking of that as a project, and your energy that is spent on that isn't spent on the thing that you want to do, which is, collective art making and collective difference making or whatever. So I think, and that translates across obviously to issues like social housing. So for the general population, like, even though it's cheap, we also have the lowest salaries and wages of the island as well. So we're in a very precarious position at the same time as being in a very lucky position. We're the luckiest of the precarious ones. So yeah.
Thanks. I really like that term you just used there, collective difference making. can we, yeah, this next one. And we'll move through this one a little more quickly because we've sort of touched on it a little bit, but you know, so let's hear what you have to say anyway. Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, this one is kind of tough, no? It all depends. We talk about this a lot lately. Because realities has been different as well for people, no? Like it's different than when you started. You're still okay with like just doing things you like and then believe in it and all those kind of stuff. But then when you have like, you know, reality hits and it's different. And then there's always that moment in my experience, at least for everyone, that they decide whether they want to stay with us or they just leave and have a livability somewhere else or focus on something else. Sometimes both happen. Like the livability acts as a support, so people can still be active with us, but it's also kind of like the other way around as well. Like they leave because like, yeah, they cannot live by it, no? And then lately we've been trying to, for the last 2-3 years, we've been trying to at least meet the amount of like minimum wage for every month for almost every one of us. But again, we realized after 2-3 years doing it, it's impossible to sustain either. The reason why we tried to do it is because of this, like unpaid collective projects could happen naturally, let's say, because we're doing it anyway, being paid or not. It's much more in an ideal sense. In reality, actually, it didn't stop people looking for money somewhere else. So it's kind of like catch-22, let's say. And then I'll stop there before talking too much because I can talk a lot about this. But Gesha is the one more active, I think, like lately, talking about this, please.
Thank you, Farid.
Yesterday was the last majlis, no?
About this thing. But in short, because we're running out of time, I think as long as, let's say, we factor any other currency, which is often time, let's say how long does it need to, let's say, finish this project, what is the rhythm, what is the tempo, and from there we can always try to negotiate. And then if this project has certain value, let's say to build relationship with our community, with our neighbor, this is something that we would try to go length to do it. So yeah, that's for me. RA Collective.
I was actually just talking about this yesterday with someone we were doing a workshop with, and we do have lines. They're probably not as close in. Our boundaries probably aren't as rigid as they should be with this, but there were certainly parts of the ask from the Tate that we just weren't able to do because they didn't understand that we all needed to work to be able to fund our practice. So I think they're maybe more used to dealing with A, individuals, and B, maybe people who have intergenerational wealth and can fund their practice. So we just had to say no to some things because if we're taking a day, that day costs us in terms of our living and being able to survive in neo-capitalism.
Any more arrays?
Yeah, I suppose like just continuing what Emma was saying, the fact of being a collective helped quite a lot because we could, delegate different tasks and opportunity between us. So it's not the same person that have to be there all the time. Yeah, it's an hard question.
We can keep thinking about it because we've more time, but let's move on to the next question and then we'll finish up this round.
Yes, please.
So the artistic experiment that we are currently doing is not necessarily artistic because it's more into the economical sense, but economical context, but how we can make it artistic, how, let's say, we're not trapped to the way of corporate way of like paying people, making decisions or certain structures. So right now we think of the institutional or organizational building like is an artistic form itself. Like there is a creativity in it, there is, let's say, a certain poetry in it. So that's currently it. And we're also translating these simulations into some games, which maybe later we will also touch upon. But we think of games as pedagogical tools, educational tools to engage about this collective practice in a more playful way.
Yeah, maybe I'll just like add very shortly. I got reminded a lot of times as well when we're doing both projects internally and externally. Like, of course, I got bored as well, like everyone else, when we talk about things that Geisha was talking about, internal things, institutional things, let's say, for a lack of better word in my head right now. Managerial, sometimes even if we want to reduce it to it. But I got reminded a lot of times by my colleagues and friends that it's actually the artistic work we're doing. So it is artistic in itself. And then how we argue about it and for it has been also kind of like developing and has been different from phase to phase, from 2000, let's say, up until 2022. Pass it to Array. Hopefully it's not too long.
I think there's something like in terms of experimenting in Array, like we all come from individual practice. And I think there's something just in collaborating itself that is the experiment, or it feels like that a bit. Like something about giving up control and sharing control and pushing towards one thing as 11 rather than the individual. And like building trust and trusting the other 10 when you're making something or you put the idea forward and having to give that up a bit, I think is an experiment that we're all still kind of playing with.
Yeah, I feel that especially if we're like, I don't know, putting together a proposal that is all, all of us involved, and it starts with like, just like throwing ideas, random ideas into a Google Drive with different color-coded text. I mean, that's an experiment for me because it's something that, I don't know, nobody knows where this thing is gonna go, but we kind of trust the process that something will come up from it, I suppose.
If you look at the question, I think just that word currently, for like really, maybe we've not seemed like we've been more particularly active in terms of exhibiting or whatever, maybe in the last year or that, but really for us, if you ask the 11 of us, we've been incredibly active, because like socially we make uploads, we're having lots of conversations, basically like strategically trying to map out what is our next move and like what are our like shared collective values, is quite important. It might not be experimentation per se, but I think it kind of, those conversations for us are, because it allows us to tease out what our next moves are strategically.
Yeah, and I think anytime we interact with a big organization or institution, then that's always an experiment, because they really don't know how to handle collectives, or like even something as simple as when they want to interview and you want more than one person in front of the camera, they get weird about it. Yeah, so I think almost just by dint of being who we are, everything we do is a little bit seat of the pants and a little bit experimental.
That's great. Fantastic answers, everyone, and so much already coming up to do with city ecologies and sustainability and resources and wide range of social issues, thinking about the limitations and opportunities that arise from challenging spaces. really interesting to hear as well about the, you know, experimental ways of not being trapped, you know, and thinking about how to be open through working with others. We're going to now open up the conversation to Good School and ruangrupa. Gessia and Farad, you're going to lead a little knowledge exchange phase of our discussion today, and we're you're gonna do this for around 15 minutes, and then we'll pass on to our Ray, and whatever comes up, I suppose. But Gessia and Farad, you lead off here, and we'll follow you wherever you take us.
Thank you very much, Declan. I think like this is a module. Maybe I'm just going to introduce a bit. This is a module that actually developed by Serum originally. It's called Pasar Ilmu or Knowledge Market, but where like an amount of public, a big amount of public, not knowing to begin with, and so not curated as well as presence, come to a space, and then they ideally got matched with a stranger, with another stranger, and then they sit for a given time. Like right now, we're given a particular set amount of time, and then we one, and it's like switching positions to become teacher and to become student in a very short time, and spontaneous as well. It's not as spontaneous as it is right now, and then this is kind of like also in Zoom, so the interaction is different because the relationship that lasts because of this module actually is the one that is the most valuable. Serum thought in the beginning, but it has been useful as well. We've been starting our regular program every year with this as well, for those who the participants who just join our program and all those kind of stuff. And then this time we start by sharing the knowledge that we think might be valuable, or actually we're also curious on how others do it. This time it's Array, and then it's kind of like developed through the pandemic. Not only, but like the pandemic made it very, very intense because the collectivity we like to do was made impossible because of the restrictions to be together in one space. So we tried to make Zoom fun, let's say, as a shortcut. And then Gessia, I think like I'm lucky to be joined by Gessia because I cannot do it by myself. I'm just like not cut for it. I can think conceptually, but not practically about this. So Gessia has been like one of the masters in it. So yeah, please, Gessia, take it away.
Okay, thank you so much, Farid, for thinking that way for me. Yeah, so like Farid said, for how boring can Zoom be and the limitations it entails, but then again, that's the only way we can connect with the restrictions. So that's why we've been developing many modules with games, or let's say long distance building collective. One of them is through creating a workbook. That one we did it with Art Gallery of York University in Canada. So we have a module that we usually done offline, which is collective as a school. So the idea is that for us, collective is a school where you learn, and then your peers is your teacher, you exchange knowledge, and also it's a place that you given permission to fail and to try again. So that's why when we were going to do this collaborative work with Canadian collectives and artists, because we cannot conduct the group discussions there during pandemic, we created this book that contains like a Tetris game, ladders and snakes, and then fill in the blank games that covers the questions about the idea of collective as a school, like how many members you have, what is your economy models and all. And other games is that the collective card that we just experienced earlier. So actually in real life, we have the cards, the pile of cards, we shuffle them, and then you pick a random card and you answer that question. So essentially we've been playing that game. But recently what that Good School developed is the speculative collective board game. So it is for, let's say, people who don't have collective, or let's say part of collective, but they form a speculative collective with other members, and they given some scenarios, let's say challenges, like what happened if one of your members is dating each other and then they fight, and then they you cannot reach out to them, what would you do? And then the members need to speculate, like how do you approach them, and then like how you mediate and all that. Or for example, let's say some scenarios that one of the members' belongings taking up the whole space, how will you address it to them? So that kind of games. And then each member will have, let's say, a secret role that will be revealed by the end of the game. So they can be that co-founder who always nostalgic about the past, about back in my days, this doesn't happen and all that. Or they can be that kind of villain role who always questions other member ideas, like that's not realistic, but they don't have the solution. So that's usually how we articulate and reflect our experiences in games. So recently, we want to incorporate games as a way to engage about these collective practices. But one thing that we are also curious from Array Collective, like do you have your internal game, let's say drinking games, or have you also used, let's say, games in your practices? And if we have the time, let's say, let me check, like we have, let's say, about 9 minutes, we can try out that game, and then yeah, online.
Well, I don't know if we were meant to jump in and answer, but drinking's not a game.
I agree.
Apparently somebody once said that Array was 10 alcoholics and an Italian, but I'm not sure. It's not true. It's not true. Yeah, I think like there's loads of play. Like one of the great things I love, one of my favorite things about Array is that I feel like I can be more playful in Array than I can necessarily be in my own practice. And I don't know why that is. And I sort of feel that from other people as well, although there's a few of the artists who use a lot of play in their own personal practice. Like I can think of Sinead, who does play quite a lot in her practice, and Clodagh does like intimate kind of interaction and play with her. You know, lots of people do. So yeah, there's definitely a thread of that running through, but it also reminded me of after we'd had the Jerwood exhibition and before we were planning the Turner show, like we spent a fair amount of time like sitting with each other and trying to think through what did and didn't work the last time, and we tried like different strategies. I don't know how playful they were, but we used a lot of post-it notes. So
yeah, we for I think for some brainstorming we used this kind of emergence strategy thing. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Just put together yeah, kind of like keywords and cards, and see which ideas were like, what was the most like valuable or like popular idea or topic that we wanted to go through. And we also used this card for one of our initial meeting for like talking, because we figure out that some of us are a bit quieter, and some of us tends to be a bit, you know, more chatty and louder and whatever. And so we're like, right, so we have 3 cards, and this means speaking 3 times, and everybody has to use these 3 cards. So that wasn't really a game, but it was like, you know, using a game to like yeah, try to overcome our boundaries, which would be like either, you know, being too much like outspoken, or like find very hard to like get within the group and put your seed within the conversation.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, the social aspect for me is like such a massive benefit and positive that Emma was talking about. Like, I don't know how you find it, but because I know you're working in institutions, etc. But for us, we're kind of almost all parallel in terms of our careers. You know, we're all badly paid, we're all like overstressed, overworked. So then you basically want the like polar opposite from Array. You know, you don't want this collective to come in as like another stressful aspect on top of your already stressful life. And so, like, you know, whether it's social media with Clodagh or different things, like, people are always like, you just look like you're having like a laugh, or like you're having like loads of crack. And like, I think all of us have a history of working in other collectives, and they're quite like formatted. They basically pre-existed before we entered them. So like, they're quite, you know, Catalyst Arts, etc. And they're at a quite strict format of how you would work in them. And so you kind of had your time within it and be quite enjoyable. But with this, it's so much more free flowing, so much more like, I said at the start, we're so much more social. And I think we do our best work when like the Zooms are great, etc. And sometimes we just have to have a meeting on Zoom. But it's like the energy and the like, I don't say joy, but it sounds a bit Oprah Winfrey, but the joy that you get when like 11, because it's incredibly hard to get 11 in the room, you know, there's kids and families, etc. going on. So when you get that moment, and it is a bit rare, unfortunately, the last while, that's fantastic. So it's not a game again, but it just feels like a good moment, you know?
Yeah. So I think so for Array, let's say playing together is also an important activity for bonding, to ease off tensions. But I'm also wondering, since you guys in your space, do you have like tabletop game or like some game you have? Like for us, we have domino, ping pong table, and then usually our members go for football sessions weekly. But yeah, I wonder like what do you guys have in your space now? Like, or you just like makeshift bottles, or I don't know.
It's a lot of costumes.
Yeah, there's
A lot of costumes and
Ooh, what costumes?
Like wigs,
loads of wigs. Yeah.
fabric,
Like gowns, like a lot of what are they called? Like not a crop. A lot of shirts and things that were just like scrolled on.
or props
Oh, yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
You will get a few examples now.
They're
It's coming.
mostly all centered around protest.
Awesome.
Yes, these kind of things, I suppose.
So I think if you like, not critique it, but like if you analyze it, people will just like put stuff on during
Yeah.
because also like when we talked about space earlier, the space is tiny. Like we actually got a good look around it. There's only, I mean, there's 11 of us, but there's only 6 studio members within the building. It's really, really small space. And where the 3 of us are now is where we have our meetings in person. Yes, people just end up like grabbing stuff.
Yeah, I think it's something about the informal invitation to play as adults that you lose somewhere around, I don't know, 10, 11 that we have here. Like it's a safe space. It's been established by us. And like, you can just go put a box in your head and go, this is my idea. And like, people are going to laugh at you, but like it will, because other people will start chipping in with their notions, it will turn into something. There's a trust in that, and it's safe. And it's like, yeah, it's just, it is joyous.
Yeah, I suppose you feel you have the permission of doing that, you know, without explaining yourself or be like, oh, this.
And like, one of the reasons we work well together is because at a lot of points our humor gels with each other, and that's not always easy or true, or yeah. I mean, we push the boundaries a little bit with each other, so, but we can make each other laugh, so it's fine.
So what
Yeah, I
about?
think, yeah, sorry.
Go for it.
No, I think it's like you, Emma touched upon a value that's sometimes a bit like it's just unsaid, you know. Everyone knows that it's important, humor, but then like it's kind of like as if it's not valuable enough or something. We remember when we said like our values, first and foremost, our values is humor. Some people actually like, especially from the series Art World, no, they frown, no, like they they don't want it, or they find it's really hard to take us seriously, let's say. So it's kind of like, so this, it's easy to dismiss, but then when you focus on longevity of practice, as you said, no, like you need to be able to stand the other person, no, this is not only a commercial work. Then you have a contract. If the job is done, delivered, then you don't have to see each other again. That's also kind of like what you touch upon as well. With problems with big bodies, sometimes they called institutions, sometimes they don't want to be called institutions, but they lost it as well, no? Like they cannot deal with it. They don't know how to release tension that way. So it's kind of like, it's becoming clear as well why we work certain way, and then why it's problematic with other models to work certain way. I'm sorry, I'm just chipping in there. Sorry, Mitch, you were in the middle of.
Oh yeah, no, sorry. Thanks for it. I was just going to ask you, Geisha, when you were talking about the games and stuff like that, like, is it for you? Is it just like, is it just a social release from your other responsibilities, or are they like? I mean, I'm just thinking of ping pong sport. Like, are you actually using it as an outlet to discuss things?
I think the same use, because I don't play ping pong, but many good friends play ping pong. But for me, it's the domino, because sometimes it's nice that you don't need to talk, but we just like put the cards, but you interacting, and then for us, it's to ease off tension and sometimes to bond, because in good school, usually our co-players for domino is not only our members, but usually like local taxi drivers who stop by and then join us, the laundry guy who lives nearby our houses. So it's become like a social function. But it's nice. You don't need to explain that you are international collector or something. No, we just play domino. You lose, you win, and then that's a plus. So for us, it's like building social connections, but in a non-verbal way, in a playful way, but also to ease off the tensions.
But another case, if I may, sorry, like chess, no, like we after being or having a chess club for a while, and then there's a game of chess designed by one of Seru member, JJ Adibrata. And then we kind of like kept on modifying that game into becoming like non-competitive. So it's not killing or eating each other's pawns, but how to win together. In the end, there's like, but it's not only 2 players as well, it becomes 4 players. So 4 table sides, but these 4 needs to work together to achieve something using the system of chess. Just an example.
So
I was just gonna ask you guys, like you probably spend quite a lot of time in good school, like in, I don't know, how many times would you be in good school in a week, or I don't know.
It really depends on the season. Sometimes it can be like all weeks I will be there. Even sometimes I'm having a sleepover and then showering in our in our toilet. It doesn't have a proper shower, but I'm just gonna make do with everything. But there will be days it's only like 2 days, 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and especially sometimes we have to work somewhere. For example, when we have to go abroad, maybe we wouldn't be in good school for a month or for a week. But yeah, it really depends. Sometimes there was a moment I went to good school, not for working, but to be in the domino competitions until 4 a.m. So I got into until the final run up, but I lost. But like, yeah. What about you guys?
In counting.
I don't know if we have time, but I'm also curious, like how long you spend your time in our collective space? How frequent?
Personally now, because everybody has different ways, you know, but I don't spend that much time in the studio, unfortunately. I wish I could spend more time, but I end up spending time just when I really need to make something or a meeting needs to happen, and it's probably something I should improve, you know. I should make space for that, just going there without nothing really much to do, but just because that type of time is so important for yeah, to like for your creativity or for to use it as a recharging way to think about stuff. So yeah, what about you guys?
It's like, it'll depend on what projects we're working on. Some of us will go in and just do our general work from the studios, and some people might only be there when we're meeting Array particularly, or a birthday party, or when we're at midnight the night before we have to get a costume out ready somewhere. Yeah, I think like occasionally we've had, so there's a late night art thing in Belfast once a month on Thursdays. Lots of the galleries are open late, and sometimes it, like, unfortunately we've loads of stuff in the space that we would normally have pop-up exhibitions in, because we don't have storage at the minute. So, but until that happened, we would have some late night art, and it was always good crack around at Array Towers. Yeah.
Declan, I don't know how long we will have, but for sure, I'm wishing for the day I can go to your space and trying out that costume together.
Well, part of the point of this exercise is to, help you all get to know each other. So, and hopefully we make that happen where you get to Belfast and you get to Dublin. It's about 19 minutes of this part of the discussion. So is the idea from your perspective, Geshe, that you want to turn the tables and let Array ask you some questions? Yeah.
Or teach us something.
Or yeah.
Like
So
shortcut.
you can ask or you can teach or whatever you want to do. Array folks, you can find out whatever you want to find out with Geshe and Farah.
Okay. There's a pigeon at the window that's really distracting me. Emma, were you gonna start, or what do you reckon?
You should ask questions.
We actually, it's not a bad thing. It's just weird to see people smoking inside, because you haven't been allowed to do it in Ireland, north or south, for what is it, like 15 years or something? Is it that long?
At least.
Yeah. So I wonder, so do you have, I personally feel quite jealous that you have the facility to shower in your spaces when we can barely wash our brushes down in the sink downstairs. Like, we apologize if we bring anybody round, students or creators, we apologize before we unleash the toilets on them. So yeah, the walls are literally falling down on top of you while you're going to the bathroom. So I suppose if you were building your like utopian space, what would be the basic facilities that you'd need?
Oh, I tried to do it for my student projects, even that, like imagine a collective space. In this case, like with an imaginary client as ruangrupa, and then in the end, I was just only I almost failed that class, by the way. This is final studio project because I didn't design anything. I only like made an open space or like a park with parking. And then it's kind of like, that's it. And with toilets, of course, but like on the case of toilets, it's actually kind of like a thing as well for Indonesian collectives to joke about who has the worst toilet experience, for the public. Because yeah, with that many people using the facilities, let's say not only the toilets, but the sink, the urinoir, whatever, no? It just like, that's the fast, like the space that has kind of like the fastest to disintegrate somehow, no? Like it's the toughest one. So maybe it's actually, if I had to do it again or reimagine, I would start, like a lot of good architectural projects, if you ask me, it should start with toilet. Like like the toilet shows, like if the toilet is great, the rest is amazing, no?
I love that.
I just love that it's turned into toilet chat.
Yeah, so if you were like having to describe Jakarta to visitors, like I suppose Belfast, like you're never more than 15 minutes from the sea or an evangelical fundamentalist. So like how would you describe Jakarta?
I don't know whether you heard about this, yes, but like the nickname of Big Durian. Do you know durian? The fruit?
Spiky fruit, yeah.
Yeah, the spiky fruit. That's kind of like, I hate it myself. But people either hate it or love it. That's kind of like the nickname of Jakarta. But maybe I don't know whether you've heard this. I believe so. Yes, but maybe you have another version.
Yeah, durian, pungent, spiky, really hard to open, but soft inside. That's really the Jakartans. Like they have this, yeah, spiky exterior, but they are all soft. And then, and durian is an alcoholic fruit, so they are also drunkards inside. How would I describe it? It really depends on which sections of Jakarta you came, because sometimes you will find like the fancier side that have all the clubs, have all the best architecture buildings, but also there will be side that really dense, like people live in a third-story houses for like 10 families, but Jakarta is really well known for the traffic jam, and then since also Indonesia has the majority of Muslim, everywhere you go, in some hours you will hear the acoustic jamming of the Muslim prayers. Like before, I was a bit like, oh my God, is it my turn to speak? Because there was the azan prayers coming in as the background. So whenever I go abroad, like to Northern Hemisphere, sometimes it's a bit weird that I don't hear that sound, you know, of all 5 different mosques in certain regions, like to do the prayers. And also in good school, like right in front of our space, there is a mosque. So sometimes that we need to always make our events or our concerts after the prayers. So that's factoring into our organizational and time management. And then in a way, like all big cities, anything possible. Many people make a livelihood through different to all the craziest means. And then, yeah, I don't know what else. And it's really humid. It's really humid. It's really hot. We only have 2 seasons, like the dry and the rainy one. But the seasons that we have is fruit season. So sometimes it's mango season, it's durian season. Or, yeah, so that's Jakarta. But what about Belfast?
We also have 1 season, but it's very different.
What season?
The wet season all year round.
Wet and cold.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not from Belfast. Well, I'm from down south. Les is Italian.
Yeah.
And I'm from Belfast.
And she's from Belfast.
And I'm from Belfast. Yeah.
I think Belfast. Sorry, Emma. We were talking about.
The 2 gingers. That wasn't important.
Look, we were looking at the stuff earlier in terms of like sharing knowledge and just like talking about Belfast. It's like such a peculiar place, because something I think we always take an opportunity to discuss or like bring up is like public funding and like the role of the Arts Council and bodies like that in terms of like their responsibility to Belfast. And like there's a incredible history of like professional ineptitude where really, really good artists and really, really strong organizations are kind of left to rot. And I don't know, was it Farid or Geisha spoke earlier about trying to navigate through public funding or the lack of state funding in Jakarta. Yeah, and I was just wanted to ask you about that, because when you asked about Belfast is like, how would I put it politely? some of the worst public art you will ever see in your life?
I think it's home to the worst public art in Europe. It's like I'm claiming it as the capital.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe like add into that question, what is the worst piece of public art in Jakarta? And can you describe it for us?
Yeah.
All is worse. Not only in the rush hour it's worse, but if you can manage to take the public transport not in rush hour, you will have a good time seeing all the scenery and all. But then again, there was a time when I was living on the outskirts in Depok, and I used to work in my art school, which is like in the city center. And then since I need to teach at like 9 a.m. or something, so I go along with all these thousands of people, cramming myself inside that train. And then yeah, it's really something that I would never repeat again in my life. But what is the worst public transportation, Farid, for you?
Public art.
I think it's public.
Public art. Oh, public
question.
art. I thought public transportation.
Don't worry, don't worry.
But like,
don't worry.
Sorry for our
Because we've got the worst public transport system.
miscommunication. Yeah, public. I don't know. Public art is weird in Jakarta. Because well, there are many things like who made the public and the art. That's kind of like contested already, no? In Jakarta itself, even public space is questionable. It's the feeling of it is getting better. Today, I actually kind of like was surprised that more public spaces were actually surrounding where I live, the area where I live. I didn't know that because I just like took it for granted growing up. There's no, every space is contested in Jakarta, you know, even parking is like a thing, like for people to, what Geisha said, no, to hustle. Because yeah, there's 25 million people struggling in Jakarta greater area itself, 10% of the country. So, but yeah, when I was like, again, when I was starting to know the art part of the public art by knowing ruangrupa and other collectives, then it kind of like, I remember it kind of like opened things up to me. Like that maybe it's not about what officially called public art, you know, not the statues, not all those kind of stuff, which could make interesting subject by itself. And Geisha, I think, can talk about it more. Subject of research, subject of talking about, subject of new work of art as well. But even comic books or what right now can like not only like street art and all that kind of stuff. Of course, we grew up with it before social media. Social media, if you ask me, kind of like put it into question whether it's still effective. But yeah, because everyone went to gallery and paint and canvas too fast, no? But other things, other like anarchic things, I think like happen still, but it's done by students and not labeled, let's say. It's much more like that as well in the art scene in general in Indonesia. For us, it's much more interesting in places when there's no infrastructure of art in Indonesia, like because Indonesia is a huge country and then containing of thousands of islands. So like there are pockets when art still happen when there's no infrastructure, and then we find it up until now the most refreshing that way. And then yeah, they do it in the public directly. They do it in people's life. Then like people believe in certain like animism compared to Islam, and then they make a public show about it. And then even when it's not an object, it functions in people's memory. And I think I learned a lot from those type of practices myself. Sorry to be too serious. Yes. And long.
Okay. It's okay, Farid. You as when you train as an architect, you have many insights about this. When we talk about public art, one thing on the back of my mind is, I don't know if I can share screen just a bit. There is this as you can see, this tiger statue. And then it's even more, the story gets better because it belongs to the military base office. They try, yeah, because tiger is like the symbol of the military, and it's, I don't know if they intentionally make it cute and funny like this, or like, I don't know, it's just something else. Yeah, it becomes really viral in Indonesia, the Macan Cisewu. And then after that, they make like a more formidable tiger after many critics.
Yes.
Wow, they're like the
Oh my
perfect.
God. I think it's best to represent the army. I don't know, the military. But just one thing, I also want to show you the Obama statue. So we have an Obama statue in Jakarta because Obama used to spend, I don't know how many years of his childhood in one of Indonesian schools. So right now in the school, they dedicate a statue to, yeah, Obama was here.
Oh, Ireland loves doing graffiti for American presidents as well. So
And
Yeah.
then one thing as trivia. So there is this photocopy monument in West Sumatra because their diaspora often works in other city to do photocopy business. So they make this statue. One of our member actually did a compilations of this statue. Like sometimes it's porridge statue because the city often do business to make porridge or something. And one of them.
I really like the photocopying one.
Yeah.
I'm just going to jump in, folks. It's about 1:15 now, and we've gone for about 35 minutes there. In exchanges between you. Are you okay if we move on and see what's going to come out of the poll? So for everyone who's still with us, there are a few things that are going to happen now. One, we're gonna play the songs which you've selected as the song that best describes your collective. You can each tell us what the song is, but while everyone listens to these songs, we'll make the poll available, and those will be questions that people can put forward, and we'll also take the questions that are in the Q&A, and we'll finish up in the next 20 minutes or so, depending on how we get on. But we'll start with the songs, and Farid and Geshe, do you want to tell us about what your song choice is?
It's a children's song. Yeah, it's a children's song called "The Love of a Mother." One of the part of the lyrics, we use it for one of ruangrupa's project. Oh, sorry, my neighbor just coming. Hello, hello from Belfast. So it's one part of the lyrics called "Hanya Memberita Harap Kembali," translated into only to give and to expect nothing in return. We use it as one of ruangrupa's project, where we invite artists to give everything for free to the audience and hoping nothing in return. So this is the song that for us tells about generosity. So yeah, hit it off, Shauna.
Tune.
Chill.
Maybe not.
A bit of children's song.
We
for the
could have a-
conversation.
We could have a whole session just based around discussing this song choice. I think, we'll do that again. Shauna and Joanna, I think you were going to put the poll up maybe as well, but maybe we can have that available. I'm not sure what the technical side of this is, but maybe we can have that available during the next song. Array, do you want to introduce your song choice?
It's Dicey Riley by Sweeney's Men. I think most people know it as by the Dubliners. I think Brendan Behan wrote it, or Dominic Behan, the brother. Sorry, it's an absolute tune. But the Sweeney's Men version is quite slower, and we played this one because one of the performers in a work that we made a few years back, Phil Hession, who's actually married or partner of Sheila. Great singer, fantastic singer from Belfast. He sings it, and he sings it slower because it suits his cadence and it suits his tone, and suits his accent. He does a great version of it. And Sweeney's Men is quite similar to it. Sweeney's Men, I think it's Johnny Moynihan is singing it. Johnny Moynihan's famous in Ireland because he claims, or it was claimed at one stage that he was the first man to bring the bouzouki to Ireland, the instrument. It's a great tune, but also.
Also, like Dicey Riley, her character of someone who's an alcoholic, but she was also a famous sex worker who like almost brought down top people in the police and government at the time. So we love a bit of a cheeky renegade.
Yeah, and I guess for those reasons, all those reasons, it's basically our anthem.
Yeah, like we end up singing it out a lot, I think, because we had to learn it as well for the performance.
Okay, well, we can play that, and people can keep looking at the poll and thinking about the poll too.
Poor old Dicey Riley had taken to the sup, and poor old Dicey Riley will never give it up. It's off each morning to the pub, and then she's in for another little drop, and the heart of the roll is a Dicey Riley. She walks along Fitzgibbon Street with an independent air, and then it's down by Summerhill, and the people stare. And now it's nearly 1:30. I'll just drop in for another little one, and the heart of the roll is a Dicey Riley. Oh, poor old Dicey Riley has taken to the sup, and poor old Dicey Riley will never give it up. It's off each morning to the pub, and then she's in for another little drop, and the heart of the roll is Dicey Riley.
Excellent.
Very nice.
Everybody.
Excellent work. And you know what? We didn't lose any participants just as a result of your singing. So that's really good. I'm gonna run through what's in the poll really quickly and look at the top question or two from this, and we'll answer these fairly quickly if that's okay. So the top question in the poll at the moment is what is the most memorable moment with your collective?
Okay.
Please, guys, answer first. I'm still thinking.
I'm wondering. Let's hear from our collective first. I'm curious for you guys.
For me, it's being given open top bus for the evening in Belfast by the Lord Mayor of Belfast. I mean, there's been a lot of memorable events over the last couple of years, but that was definitely the most crack.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, I think it also taught me to be careful what to say on live TV, but but that was fantastic. Like, it was just so silly. I think it was the perfect homecoming.
Yeah, the bus was very, very good. And it suited, like, it literally was, I think, 2.5 minutes long. It took us from like City Hall to meet the mayor to a pub that is like 2 minutes away.
Yeah. The bus was longer, in fact.
Yeah, than the walking, yeah.
Yeah, you could have walked it quicker. Yeah, that was really, really good.
Yeah, I agree.
And, Geshe and Farah, a memorable moment?
Yeah, I'm still loading because there's a lot to pick. One of the most memorable moment is when we have like 10 hours long meeting to decide how we should pay each other, and then after that, even though we hadn't reached conclusion yet at that time, but it was already like 11 p.m. and then we decided, okay, let's have a break and then let's just do karaoke, and then we just do karaoke until 2 a.m. So that was like one of the most memorable moments to see everybody song pick, and then like and whenever we sing the local song, everybody just get crazy. So that's the most memorable moment to me, to have karaoke with our members.
We jump on. Oh, sorry, Farah.
No. Please continue. It's fine. I understand. I share this moment as well with Geshe.
So we go on to the next question, and we can almost answer this one in a kind of one-word way. What values do your collectives share?
I think we touched upon it before with Emma as well, with humor. It's understated, but we put it number one when we had to compress ourselves and share what our values of practice are at one moment. So yeah, we put the first thing is humor. So, and then come the rest, like what Geshe shared about generosity with the song and sustainability, etc. But yeah, humor, because we want to be able to hang out for years with people we work with. That's why.
Is Stephen making something? Gag or crack, which is, yeah. it's also humor, but I suppose, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The poll seems to have disappeared, so I don't know what unless I still have it, do I?
I think, Declan, we have a few questions in the Q&A you might want to throw out to the gang.
We go straight to those. And there's one that I think is good to ask, and it's a question from Fiona Whelan, and it says, as we're being hosted by a third level institution, I wonder, could those of you who went to art college reflect upon what you may have had to unlearn from your formal education, or what change you would propose for formal art education? I think that's a really good question.
I mean, yeah, the genius of the individual artist above everything else is probably the main one. Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
I think my experience in college taught me that there was like lots of hierarchy to arrive to a certain point, while after that I learned that actually that's not like the only path that exists, and everybody can can make their own and actually achieve many important things that I don't know, that are linked with your own values, not with the values that are expected you to achieve.
I think like I had to unlearn from life, like even the things that my parent told me. So it's not about school only, like nongkrong, for example, or hanging out. It was considered, at least in my family, considered to be a waste of time. we shouldn't do it. But then this is also coming from the baby boomers generation, no? In Indonesia, particular. And then, which makes sense. But then I found these people who actually basically doing almost nothing every day. I learned a lot from these people, you know, and then I think it's still ingrained in me, even right now. Like I have almost every day I learn something new about that, like how to rethink values that I inherited, not only from school, but from education, even preschool, beyond school, extra school, etc.
As for me, what I had to unlearn from art school was, because I studied fine arts, is all the isms, all that labels that we were being taught, and we need to memorize whenever there is exam. Like okay, these painters what kind of ism he usually belong to, and all that. And I remember my first encounter with ruangrupa because I joined in 2013, and then there is one exhibition that they organized. I felt that everything that I learned from my art school went to waste, because there was one work that really made me have existential crisis, was a speaker, and then an artist put rice on top of the speaker. So when they're making noise, all the rice were dancing, and I thought like, I need to do all this color theory. I need to make this anatomical drawings, and this artist presenting this, and then that, and any other like object-based that really like unpack everything that I learned from art school, because it's still like very modernistic in a way. I need to study painting, sculpting, and all that. So that's what I had unlearned, and then not to just put labels on some artworks.
Thanks, Million. Those are great answers. And there's a lot of good questions that have been put forward by our participants, and we won't be able to get through all of them, unfortunately. But there's one here from Shodine O'Sullivan, which I think we could maybe say something about, which is about why you think maybe the art world today has got more interested in collectives, you know, with Documenta and with the Turner Prize having an all collectives shortlist in 2021. Tell us about your thinking around the way in which the collectives that you're involved with become involved with the art world.
If I may start, from our side, I think we talk about this, no? Like from our side right now, there's actually a large backlash as well. And then that's kind of like at least from the press department of Documenta, that's how I felt. Like there's a lot of backlash towards that, or against that. What I can say is like, this is something that we have been doing, both of us, Array and Good School / ruangrupa and others have been doing for a while, and we intend to keep doing it, no, with the recognition or not. The recognition, of course, come with a plus and minus. The backlash is the part of the minus, of course. But then we just hope, because we learn from the ups and downs of art markets with trends and all those kind of stuff. I hope it's not going to be another ism, what Yeshada said before, no, like collectivism, for example. We reject as much as possible that label, because as soon as we got labeled, I think it's almost the death, if I allowed to be dramatic. And then one is the trendy part, and then the second is we keep on doing this because something is not working, especially for us when we began with, and then we realized that it actually not working for many other people. So, and then connecting to others from different struggles, different, like not working what way, different challenges, have different answers and all those kind of stuff is very kind of like valuable, because it builds solidarities, no? And then I think that's the most important thing. And then we wouldn't say that we have the answer. Collective is not an answer for many challenges of the world, but this is what we know what to do. And then what we've been doing also is just like one way of doing things in the middle of many others. That many others is actually very worthwhile for us to look for as well. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Farhad. Anyone else want to just respond to that one?
I think there's something like, if we're wondering why there was such an interest in collective working, it might be important to consider just how much isolation we all experienced 2020 onwards. And I think there's something in what Farhad was saying about the reaction from like the press to collectives, and like we dealt a lot with that in Britain, and the kind of more right-wing kind of press and writers, and it spoke to kind of like 1980s Britain Thatcherism, kind of the idea of the individual being prized over all other, and like a very capitalist kind of outlook on things. So I think there is a fear of collective working, which kind of, for me, just makes me want to be more ingrained in it. But but I don't know what you guys think.
I've noticed that there's more people, younger artists on the island, calling themselves collectives, and I think it's brilliant, because so many people drop out of being artists or pursuing their like creative passions because they don't have community support and they don't have people around them, and I think it's the one big thing that can help you when lots of other things are missing for that support. So in terms of being fetishized, I don't know. Yeah, I think we were chosen very specifically that year because the 4 judges for the Turner really wanted to talk about collectives and people's response to the pandemic. But I don't think, I'm pretty sure the Tate had to be convinced a lot before they let that happen. I don't think it was the institution trying to ingratiate themselves with us at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it will happen again.
Last question, and then we're going to wrap it up, and then your Saturday night will be free and your Saturday afternoon in Belfast will be free. So this is a question from Petra Matic, who's joined from Zagreb, and she has asked, what advice do you have for artists who don't have a community or a space yet and they want to? So how do you start? Just as we end, maybe we'll talk about how you get started.
Can I just jump on that so really quick? So with the protest, just it's maybe not a good example with Array. Some people talk about how Array started, or we always get this question, and particularly in terms of collectivism and fetishization. We were kind of called a collective by someone else before we called ourselves a collective. But that's by the by. But I don't want to be an advocate for WhatsApp, but in terms of just organizing, really the origins of WhatsApp was or of Array, sorry, was through WhatsApp and texting, and just being on your phone and just asking your mates and your friends, who are you going to this thing? And if you were passionate about it, I knew Stephen back then, not actually that particularly well, but I knew he'd be at the Irish language marches, he'd be at the Cliftonville football matches, he'd be at the Alliance for Choice rallies, etc. And it's just I know if you become isolated, but if you can tap into or use those channels where you will actually kind of quickly find those groups, I think.
Yeah, or even there is that, and even coming together with your immediate friends, or with your flatmates, or whoever is around you, whoever can join you in some activity. That's
and I think even sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you build a collective the same way you build friendship groups, and the way you make friends. So that the way you make friends is because you have shared interests and commonalities, and you build trust with them. I think it's the exact same thing, and we've said a number of times, we were all friends first, and I think Belfast Art Community lends itself to that. But I think like that's how collective is formed. I mean, that is for us at least.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Emma. Sorry.
I was just going to say it's, we're primarily we are in it together to support and care for each other before, like a collective art output wasn't first thing on our minds, so.
Yes, Jen Farad, last word on this one.
Yeah, maybe I just like quickly tap into what Geshe said before about like our neighbors as well, mosques using dominoes, etc. That's how we started as well. We should learn where we're at by being a good neighbor or good neighbors. And then these neighbors actually are very valuable. That's why sometimes I skeptically see invitations from outside of our own context as like, something that extractive, taking us out from that life, because there's a trap in it, at least from my own experience. And then sometimes we forget because of like the dream or the art world, the global art world, the glitz and all those kind of things, which is smokes and mirrors after a while, I have to say. Yes, because you touch upon neighbors, maybe you have last words on it.
I think usually what based on bond collective, if when you have a common cause, sometimes it's common enemy, but enemy in many manifestations. For us, for example, is the price of Jakarta's property. That's our common enemy. That's why we need to share the space together. Or sometimes the enemy is the hoarding of access. So that's what we want to fight and all that. So when you have common causes and then you have people with similar concerns, it's really important to base your collectivity on necessity. Otherwise, it's just like hanging out because you have the necessity to spend time together. And also, I think being in a collective takes up many social energy. And then because you need to be present, you need to make small talks, you need to sometimes have deep conversations, and then that's sometimes what we didn't expect, like you need to talk to lots of people, and then that's usually what it takes to hold it. So yeah, necessity, and then invest in that social energy to get to know each other. Mitch, I see you want to jump in.
No, sorry.
Oh,
I'm huddling beside the hater.
Yeah, so yeah, that's it.
I think that, I mean, you've covered so much, and there's so many things that are just wonderful about this conversation today. And as we've said before, this is the start of a conversation. We hope that we can do something in Ireland or elsewhere where we bring everyone together again. And Mitch, Alessia, Stephen, Emma, thank you so much for your contributions from Belfast. Geshe and Farad, thank you for giving up your time from Jakarta. And in the background, Shauna and Joanna, thank you for making all this work and function properly today. Check the Creative Futures Academy website for recordings and information and so on. This has been NCAD for the Creative Futures Academy. You've all been amazing. Yeah, I hope everyone who's attended got something out of it. I certainly did. And yeah, thank you so much to everyone involved.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to meet you again. Please stay in touch.
Stay in touch.
We too.
Please keep that box intact until I came there. Thank you so much.
Thanks a million, everybody.
It's been fun. Thank you so much, everyone. Shauna, Joanna, Sarah, Declan. Thank you, Farid. Thank you, Emma, Mitch, Alessia, Stephen. Take care. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Bye.
Bye.